Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's webinar from OPSWAT Academy. I'm Nate Medeiros, the product owner of OPSWAT Academy, and I'm joined here today by Dan Lanier, our Senior VP of Customer Experience here at OPSWAT. We have a really special episode for this month. Typically, we talk about the technologies and the solutions toward cybersecurity challenges. Today, we're going to be talking about the people that are working in the field that keep things running, that are working in these critical infrastructure facilities that really keep our entire way of life operating. And I'm really excited to talk to Dan today about what it's like to support those people. So, Dan, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, Nate. Thanks for having me on. My name is Dan Lanier, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Customer Experience at OPSWAT. I've been with OPSWAT for over 11 years. And in that 11 years, I've gotten to see not just how OPSWAT has evolved, but more importantly, how the industry has evolved and how the various types of critical infrastructure security concerns and practices have evolved. And so it's been a really, really exciting journey for me, being part of this greater journey of securing critical infrastructure.
That's great. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, it's been, you kind of already touched on a huge element to this because as these facilities, manufacturing, water treatment, energy, as they were first being developed, cybersecurity wasn't part of a fundamental branch of their structure, right? It's even, even if you go to the history of the Purdue model, something we reference very often as, creating levels of security within a manufacturing or energy facility, it wasn't originally designed with cybersecurity in mind. That's why there's the multiple layers, and when we talk about the DMZ zone, it's layer 3.5. It was shoehorned
Right,
in there later.
right,
So
right,
the industry really has a lot of catching up to do. A
right.
lot of hard lessons that are being learned. Uh, do you feel like you've seen a shift in the mindset of these particular individuals that are working in these facilities?
Well, there's a few things going on here, right? I mean, first of all, you talk about like cybersecurity, right? So a lot of these lower level, the lower levels of the Purdue model, like you said, they weren't even necessarily cyber back in the day, right? So you see that one of the trends going on is that you have more and more of these low level actuators and the actual industrial control systems themselves becoming more internet enabled, network enabled, right?
Mm,
In many cases, that's not always possible, and there's times where you don't want it, but oftentimes it really does make sense. It's much easier to manage and control vast numbers of these systems if they're connected and you can access them, et cetera. So there's more and more connectivity, which from a productivity perspective is great. But then you got to be thinking, well, if I can access these things in cyber fashion, that means a bad state actor or a bad actor can do that as well. And so, like, what are we going to do about that, right?
right.
That's one trend that we've seen over the last 10 years. And then the second trend, of course, is that there's been more focus by these bad actors on actually attacking these systems, right? So the idea of attacking a utility or trying to shut down a pipeline, et cetera, that's become more and more common practice. And so people are more and more aware, hey, this is something that we've got to be focused on. We've got to be securing.
Yeah.
So, you got the two sides going on there.
It
Yeah.
used to be something you could only do with a wrench. Now you can do it with a computer.
It used to be something you could only do with a wrench. I mean, I don't know. I guess there was always times where there were certain people that thought about doing it as a way to nefariously attack one of these things, but it just seemed like it was very, very uncommon. Right now, you're doing it with a computer. Now there are various, whether it be a state actor or a criminal enterprise that realizes, hey, I have a real interest in taking this system down. Again, either to just take it down to disrupt that nation's ability to operate, or I'm taking it down to extract a huge ransom or whatever it is. There's more and more of a sense that this is a great target to go after, and it's more easily accessible now because I don't need that wrench. I just need to be sitting with my computer thousands and thousands of miles away, and I can still make it happen. So,
So yeah,
I mean, that has definitely evolved.
right. I mean, now we're seeing the same employees, those people that used to manage those pumps and actuators. Those typically weren't IT people. And now we're seeing more of a blend where in order to even function at those low levels, they need to have those, the technical skill or teams that work with them. So you have the operations teams working more closely than ever with the IT
Right,
teams and the security,
right.
cybersecurity teams. So do you feel like those job roles are blending into one, or that they're still going to be maintained relatively segmented in the company's roles? Do they just have to double their personnel to deal with this, or is
Yeah.
this more of like those skills are more fundamental now to managing these manufacturing facilities?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I'm not I can't prophesize where things are going completely, but in general, I don't see it melding into one because at the end of the day, operations technology and what operations are trying to accomplish is unique and it's different than what like the enterprise is dealing with.
Right.
So it's not melding into one. I don't think. I think you're always going to need the it's a complex enough environment where you're always going to need people that are more OT focused, operations focused, and they kind of understand that the production needs and the security needs of OT, and that's going to be a little bit different than what you see on the enterprise. Now, there's definitely some melding going on, right? So a lot of the practices that are more maybe mature in the enterprise space, in the IT space, I'm talking about cybersecurity practices. They're a little bit more
Right.
mature, a little bit more like common practice at this point. They're being applied over to the OT, and experts in IT. Some of that expertise can definitely be utilized in OT. So there's a melding there for sure. But again, it's not always. I don't see it becoming just one, right? So I know we talk about IT and OT and the merging of IT and OT. I think that merge is it's not like a complete merge, right? It's a merge of practices, best practices, the right technologies, et cetera. But there's still going to be specific expertise on the OT and the IT side. At least that's my prediction.
Right. Yeah, that's a really plausible way for things to turn out too.
Right.
And I'm in the same camp because at the end of the day, you're going to need people that are specialized in certain aspects. And there's, when we talk about critical infrastructure, it's not just one thing. That there could
Right.
be somebody that needs to know the ins and outs of water chemical properties, or be a mechanical engineer expert, and not necessarily need to have an IT background. But
Exactly.
the customers that you service, that we service here at OPSWAT, we interface with that IT portion
Right.
uh,
Right.
because of
So
that's
so 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 one thing I just want to add, just I'm not sure if this is kind of where you're going or not, but in general, one thing you're seeing is that everybody, right? Everybody in that operations technology space, as well as that IT space, everybody in the space in general has to become and is becoming more cybersecurity aware,
mm,
right? So that's now like, I mean, whether your role in that facility is the cybersecurity expert or whether your role is something else, you're just the plant manager, the production operator, et cetera. Everybody has to be more cyber aware, cybersecurity aware, right? That's a responsibility we all have. Everybody in that industry, everybody in industry has that responsibility now. And I see that, from my experience, I see that when I work with customers, people get it. Everybody understands that that's something that's needed. It might not be your core competency, or your core passion, but it's definitely something that you understand. Yeah, this needs to be part of my overall mindset. It's got to be part of my overall education. It's got to be part of the way I work in this industry, is to be thinking about cybersecurity in everything I do. And that's definitely something that I think has has really evolved. I mean, that's sort of that mindset, that knowledge that you need to be aware of it and stay educated on it, right? It's not a one-time thing. It's a continuous education, continuous training to stay aware, even if that's not your main focus, that's not your main job at the facility, that's not your main job within your company. You've got to be thinking about that as well.
Yeah, you mentioned it. One of the biggest avenues for awareness is through training,
Right,
and sometimes things don't always translate into a really intuitive message or documentation that you can put on a poster, right? I mean, you can easily say, hey, if you see a USB laying around, don't plug it into something, right? That's an
right,
easy one.
right,
But then you get into a lot more nuanced things like the way that people store and manage their passwords for VPN connections, or lots of other using your emails for your day to day. What are the policies here? Do you ever find that uh, customers of ours that deal with these critical infrastructure facilities, they are they looking to the solution providers, the OPSWAT, the solution that we have, the security solutions for this information on how to best secure their environment? Or are they building their training internally for their really specific needs? Because, I can talk about OPSWAT Academy and our approaches to the challenges that cybersecurity industries face, but sometimes there's going to be a industry that has a really specific problem, a really specific use case, or process that that they need to train them on. Do you ever get approached from customers with this, or is this something that is always going to be more of an internal training platform for them?
that's a good question, and I don't have a easy answer. I think it's almost like I want to start with just saying all of the above. I think and here's why I say that. Okay, first of all, I've seen, I've worked with so many different companies, so many different people, at so many different companies, and the range of sort of maturity of cybersecurity within these different companies is really vast, right? So there are some companies that are like really, really mature and evolved in their cybersecurity training, their cybersecurity posture, and their cybersecurity training, right? They're really, really evolved, and they're so advanced, and they have their own internal, like what you were describing, their own internal cybersecurity, office, as it were, and with very specific training, et cetera. And then there's, all the way to some companies that like they're just starting to really think about what it means to have a cybersecurity practice and policy in place, like a
And
comprehensive
a lot of
cybersecurity.
times that's being introduced through new regulations too, where they didn't have to in the
Right,
past.
there's the regulation piece, which I was going to go into too. The constant, not only, and again, it's not a one-time thing, right? There's constantly new regulations, and the need to, and those regulations really these days especially emphasize the need to have the right kind of training and the right kind of training practice within the company. So you see all sorts of different companies at different levels of, different different points on that journey to get there. Now, but I'll say this: whether it's a company that's really, really evolved and really far along in that journey, and they already have their internal training, or whether it's a company that's kind of less evolved and still trying to get there, right? It seems to me that the vast majority of these companies, they still look to external expertise for assistance, right? Because again, it's a never-ending challenge, and so they're always looking for external expertise, and they look in part, so they look at different places for that external expertise. But one of the places they look for is with the vendors that build the cybersecurity solutions, right? In fact, you mentioned OPSWAT Academy. I mean, this is OPSWAT Academy. OPSWAT Academy was born out of this need that we saw, right? Where we had so many customers that would talk to us about the need to be better educated on cybersecurity. And the funny thing is, originally when we heard that, we just, at least for me, when I was hearing that originally, it was like I was taking it in a very narrow way. I was thinking that
Yeah,
they were telling me, yes, I need training on your products, on the
Products.
OPSWAT
Yeah,
products, right?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
so we started focusing on, okay, how do we build an academy about the OPSWAT products? And then soon we learned that no, what they were really saying is, can you help me get trained on cybersecurity best practices, critical infrastructure protection
yeah.
best practices?
The real question is they were asking why.
Right,
Why,
exactly.
why, why have this product here in this
Right,
place?
right. Or yeah, kind of like a version of that is like we on one level we understand why we need to have this product, but we want to understand better. We really
Right.
understand what, yeah, and also not to go too far down this road, but also like you look at these products, whether they be OPSWAT products or other products, and you see all these different configuration options and feature options and all these different things, and to really make use of those things, you realize I got to understand, what I mean. So I see that these cybersecurity vendors have built these amazing products, amazing solution sets. They do all these things, but I got to understand what each one of those things, like why they built each of those things, right?
Yeah.
So each one of those features has some underlying cybersecurity or critical infrastructure protection, concept,
Right.
and,
You
and
have
I,
to
I should really
understand.
understand what they
Yeah.
were. Yeah,
You have to understand the difference between like a zero-day threat versus like a known malware in a database. What deep CDR even is, if you want to check that box on core. That you have to
right,
understand how data flows in and out of different areas of vulnerability. These are all things that we've ultimately, built and covered on the academy.
exactly, exactly,
So
exactly. I mean,
that's
they're perfect examples. What's the difference between a vulnerability and an exposed vulnerability? What is a zero-day attack?
right,
What you talk about content disarm and reconstruct, right? This really kind of very, very powerful tool. But when is that tool applicable? When is it not applicable, right? Stuff
right,
like that. So, and the list goes on, right? And then you also have to look at, like, some of these things might be really, really applicable in the enterprise space and less applicable in the operational space, right? And of course, the operational space, in operational technology, you have additional risks that you have to deal with. So all that stuff, just staying on top of that, um, and then throw in, as you said, the regulations.
the
So I mean,
regulations.
I think
Yeah,
you were talking about regulatory, like the regulations that are basically pushing companies to get more trained. So there's
right.
that. There's those
That's always
regulations.
a big element. Like NERC SIP,
Right.
like training is a huge
Huge, right?
item on that. Yeah. To rein it in a little bit more, back to the people, right? Because that's really what we want to talk about today is the
Right.
people working on that. To kind of summarize these points and where these somewhat tangents have been going is, even if you are working in cybersecurity and you are dealing with problems in critical infrastructure, that you know not knowing every solution, every problem is part of the job, and finding ways and resources to get those solutions is really what can set you apart in that industry. Working with your vendors, working with other methods to get best practices, and as we talked about earlier, the type of uh, of employees that you'll be working with is going to drastically differ depending on what kind of industry you're in. And even within the same industry, you could be dealing with building cybersecurity training for operations people, or even for sales team members, marketing, whatever it is, and you have to work with all of those teams. So the audience here, they're interested in the cybersecurity portion of that, and it's important to understand that it's not just going to be dealing with some kind of interface that's scanning files for malware. It's when we're talking about critical infrastructure, it's always going to be, how does this impact the big picture? How does this fit within my entire data workflow? Even if my job is just a small piece, right? What's the element here that I'm working with? And that's what's really going to set those individuals apart from excelling in the cybersecurity industry. If you can understand what the bigger picture is at play for what your company is trying to solve and accomplish together. um, and so, kind of on that point, Dan, we deal with those individuals, we deal with those team members that are trying to solve that problem. They're trying to maybe secure one particular element of vulnerability within their industry. Whether they have 5 OPSWAT products for all different elements of data flow, or maybe just one. They just had a one hole somewhere that they need to plug or put another layer of Swiss cheese in, as
Right.
we talk about in a lot of our webinars.
Right.
Um, you know, those individuals dealing with these kind of companies, it's got to be fairly stressful, I would imagine. To be on the team of or in charge of a security team, cybersecurity team, for a critical infrastructure company, because these, like energy or water treatment, like these things keep our way of life going.
Right.
And so, from your experiences, what is it, what's it like working with those individuals? Is there any kind of motif of personality that you see, something that you think is important to those individuals? I'm curious as to kind of what your takeaway is with uh, the types of customers that we have and the interactions with
Right.
them.
Right. So, I mean, again, I deal with all sorts of people. I would say if there are common characteristics of these people that are in the cybersecurity part of their company, that they understand that part of, I shouldn't say it that way, people that whose job it is to keep their facility, their company, the country secure.
Hmm.
These are people that like anybody that has like anybody has chosen to rise up to the challenge of being part of security, right? You have to be someone that is disciplined and focused and motivated, um, someone that can deal with stress effectively, right? So you talk about the stress of this job. This area can be stressful. I mean, it can be stressful in the way that many other types of jobs and responsibilities are stressful, right? So it's not uniquely stressful, but it's not for the lazy. It's not for someone that's wants to just kind of hang out and do the minimal amount of work. It's a job, it's a role, it's a responsibility for someone that sort of understands the gravity of what they're doing, and has that it's having that understanding of the gravity, even though day to day it might not be there might not be a fire raging every day, right? In fact, there's not. We shouldn't even say there might not.
Yeah,
There's not,
it
right?
really
Day to
shouldn't be.
day,
Yeah.
day to day, things might be calm, but internally, that you still have to be focused on it, as if it's, you have to be thinking about the day where it's not going to be calm, right? Or the focused on it in a way that's like that you take it very, very serious with a very, very, you understand the gravity of it. I keep using that word, but that really, I think,
Yeah.
encompasses it. And I think that's so when the people I work with, they tend to be people that have that sort of understanding, and that responsibility is on their shoulders, and they get it, right? And they take it seriously. And they understand that, you talk about the big picture. They understand the ultimate big picture. The ultimate big picture is that a really bad event wouldn't just be bad for them, their department, their facility. A really bad incident would be bad for the country.
Right.
A really bad incident would be bad for their community, for the people that they know and love, and I'm talking about at the greater level, right?
Right.
And so they understand that they have this responsibility to keep these people and the community and the country secure. And as part of it, they also understand that means constantly being on top of your game. On top of your game, meaning constantly being aware of sort of where we are right now in terms of what kind of threats there are and how threats are evolving on the big scale of things, right?
Mhm.
And what kind of mitigations there are to deal with those threats. And again, that's just an ever evolving thing, right? You never get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm there.
Yeah.
I figured it out.
I
I've
built the
mastered it.
wall.
I
Yeah.
built the wall, right? Exactly. And the people I deal with, the customers I deal with in all sorts of critical infrastructure industries, I mean, that is one common thing. They all get that. They all get
Right. So it takes that passion to be able to want to and stay motivated to stay on top of that. But it also sounds like curiosity is incredibly important there too, because you need to be tenacious enough to find what the newest threats are
that. Yeah.
for your own organization, for whatever it is that you're setting up. And a lot of times, the level of threats, we rely a lot on the big name vendors, right? For like antivirus, we rely a lot on them updating their databases, their signatures to stay up to date on the latest threats. But even then, if you're just dealing with signature based definitions, it's up to you as a security individual to know and to deal with things like zero day attacks. Okay, what's your game plan for that? But then also at this, we've been talking a lot about incoming threats, but even just mitigation,
Right.
responsiveness. I mean, sometimes you have entire teams dedicated just to incident response.
Right.
So there's a lot of levels that we can go with that. And I mean, typically
Right.
our customers aren't the incident response team. They're the ones that operate the products that.
Right. Although more and more we deal with incident response teams as well. So I'd say that while that might not have been historically our main customer base, I think now, we interact a lot more with incident response. I mean, again, these things, they start to overlap, right? So OPSWAT itself, we have products that like lend themselves to incident response. Our OPSWAT's managed services has an incident
Right.
response arm. So we're more and more, uh, we're a lot more into that area now than we were, let's say, a few years ago. Incident response, but to your point, also, like, there's also the products and stuff that are being put in place with the idea that we reduce the number of incidents. So our goal is
Mitigation.
mitigation, right?
Yeah,
Detection,
it's
mitigation.
something
Yeah,
that we bring up on the webinars a lot is that the term we want to stick by, at least in today's world, is malware mitigation. Because we
right.
can mitigate and mitigate and mitigate, but you really can never definitively say that it's zero. Because as soon as you say that there's a 0% chance of being hacked, then you're hacked. And that's where
Exactly.
it stands.
Exactly. But before we move on, I just, because I kind of focused, when you asked about the people, I was kind of focusing on the sense of responsibility and the passion. And then you mentioned something, and I want to just, double on that.
Yeah.
You mentioned like the curiosity, right? So that I didn't talk about that, but I'm glad you brought it up because, right, the people I'm working with, I'm talking about the OPSWAT's customers,
Right.
the responsibility and the passion. I think that's what impresses me the initially what impresses me so much, but the curiosity and the intelligence, is that the right word? The smartness, right? The creativity, right? The people are constantly having to sort of look at like what is going on here. To your point, the curiosity, what's going on,
Mhm.
what's going on in the world, what new things are evolving, how does that affect what's going on here, etc. And then really like be smart enough and creative enough to think what are the best ways to mitigate that, right? To
Right.
minimize that while still allowing my organization to be productive, right?
Right. And even in a stressful situation too, because I'm sure that you've had to deal with these customers, these people on the front lines that are dealing with maybe a really critical situation, and they
Yeah.
have to approach this from all the angles at the same time. So I'm sure you've dealt with these individuals that not only are naturally like this, but can exhibit that while they're
Can
um,
exhibit under a lot of pressure. So
under
they
a lot
can
of pressure.
exhibit this sort of like this, right? They can exhibit all those characteristics I just mentioned and you mentioned, right? Curiosity and creativity and just raw intelligence, and that sort of like MacGyver type, like trying to figure how to quickly relate to, or not, sorry, how to react to situations as quickly and effectively as possible. They can do all that under pressure and duress, and that's very impressive. That is very, very impressive.
Do you feel like that's a skill that people can learn?
I do. I mean, I think there are some people that are maybe innately better at it than others. It's kind of like anything else, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, sports, et cetera. There's some people that are probably, in my mind at least, just innately better at these things, and they'll be able to exhibit these kind of characteristics even with very little formal training and practice. But the reality is that, if you do the training, and if you have the practice, and if you have the mindset, yes, you can build those skills up, even if even if you don't feel like you have them today.
I think that the best indicator for um, if somebody's got the stuff, that they're curious enough to be able to fill this kind of role, is if they're registered in OPSWAT Academy. I think that's a really great indicator.
I can't argue with you there, Nate.
I mean, yeah, you got the natural curiosity, critical infrastructure, cybersecurity, and yes, it is a very we mentioned the stress a lot, but it's more of a stress of, in Dan's words, gravity, which in itself is a very rewarding thing to be able to uh, you know wake up, and, go to your workplace, and know that what you're doing has such a huge impact. Even if you're working on one solution, or one operating one interface, or whatever it is, these we were driving home with the part that these critical infrastructure facilities, they play such a huge role in the country, and it just in everyone's way of life. And so being able to maintain that from a cybersecurity perspective, there's so many different layers that you can really attribute that what you're doing. And even though there is the stress and there is the gravity, it's incredibly rewarding to know that what we're doing, what these individuals are doing, are really making the world a better place in a lot
Yeah,
of ways.
right.
And so
I
that's
mean, it sounds right. It's hard. How do you say it in a way that doesn't sound trite? It's like, oh, we're making the world
exactly.
better. It sounds a little funny, but the reality is, look, the reality is, we in the modern world, we have we as a society have certain expectations, right? We have expectations that when we turn on the tap, the water's going to come out. And when I'm on this video call, the electricity is going to work right.
Hmm.
And when I drive down the street, like
The lights are
the
going to work.
traffic is gonna go right.
Yeah,
And when I go to the doctor or the hospital, I'm confident that, like,
they have my
I'm
records on
confident
file. Yeah,
have our records on file, and all the medical equipment is working with it. So all that stuff, right? We just take that for granted, right? We just take that for granted, but it's an expectation we have. And the reality is that stuff, we take it for granted. I'm talking about as consumers, as individuals, we take it for granted, right? But the
right.
people in this industry, they don't, right? So when I say I take it for granted as a consumer, but if I put my cybersecurity hat on, and all the people doing cybersecurity, we don't take it for granted. We understand that this is, sad as it is, it's under attack all the time.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Under attack all the time, and not just. I mean, the majority of the population only hears about the really big attacks, really successful attacks. So maybe it seems like it's only once every few months or something, but no, every
every
day it's under
every day.
attack. Every day, right?
Yeah.
And the people that I deal with, the customers I deal with in critical infrastructure, for the most part, they understand that, right? They understand that this is something that they really are. Trite as it may sound, they really are protecting America and the world's way of life. They
Hmm.
are, and they take that responsibility seriously.
One thing that we mentioned in the academy training is, um, I think in one of our very first introduction course, is that the whole idea of what we cover in our concepts is how to approach cybersecurity with the mindset of a critical infrastructure cybersecurity professional. And the reason why we say that is because not just critical infrastructure needs cybersecurity. There are many things that we use day to day, or that people like to have, that aren't classified as critical infrastructure. Amenities such as our media consumption, or things like that. Um,
Right.
but the mindset of approaching cybersecurity with this with the depth that it would take to to deal with a critical situation, critical infrastructure situation. That's so translatable to anything in cybersecurity. And so, that's really something that I think we can drive home too, is that the people that are working in these facilities in cybersecurity in these really important places, they that's where most of that pressure is going to be. But even for those that are interested in cybersecurity that may not want to go directly into the critical infrastructure, type of training, this mindset of what can we do to mitigate, as much as possible, I think should be translated more and more toward things that aren't regulated. And
Right.
we are seeing this as well. Um, and Back in March, there was a presidential statement that talked a lot about the merging of responsibilities, of the private sectors versus the government sectors. This really was focused on the critical infrastructure aspects, where policies moving forward are going to uh, be written in ways that help share responsibilities to take the burden off of not just one party, and so that there's more of a meld of a mindset between the private sector and
Right. Like a
the government
public-private,
sector.
a public-private collaboration.
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
that that's going to be, even in the private sectors that aren't directly related toward, the security of the nation. You're going to have more positive standards in,
Right. Right. Well,
in
I
critical
think,
infrastructure.
sorry, but I think just if I may add a couple of things, I think, to your point, cybersecurity is important in all areas, in all industries, not just critical infrastructure, right? I mean, critical infrastructure has there's a certain,
You want to say gravity again?
I want to say gravity. I'm trying to find a better word. I'm trying to find a better word, or a different word. Gravity is a
Yeah.
great word, but I'm just trying to find a word that's maybe. But there's that, like, the
Hmm.
impact in critical infrastructure is huge, and so it's the importance is there, and because of that, there's this focus there, and there's this attention there, and so I think that critical infrastructure protection is driving. Um, I think critical infrastructure protection is driving a need and driving new practices and new thought, and it's really like taking the lead in all of this stuff, right?
Because it has to. It
Now,
has to.
it has to, right? It has to,
Yeah.
right? It has to. And so the people that are most serious about, again, using that term, protecting the country, they're going to tend to be focused on critical infrastructure, right? Because that's the most important. But there's so much that then can be applied. I mean, there's so much amazing stuff happening in critical infrastructure protection that can then be applied to non-critical infrastructure industries as well, right? I mean, there's still good practices. And so all industries benefit from this focus on critical infrastructure protection, right? And if you happen to be in an industry that's not deemed critical infrastructure, and you as an individual or you as an organization want to apply the rigors of critical infrastructure protection into your non-critical organization, that's great, right? I mean, I think critical infrastructure protection and the critical industries should drive best practices across all industries. And I'm glad to see that that's happening.
Yeah. It's been quite the evolution, I think, even in the last 10 years of watching the priorities of cybersecurity. In what we're seeing, the biggest thing I think that going back a little bit toward the first point you were making, the shift from uh, on-prem infrastructure. You're mentioning like actuators and pumps that are now integrated with things to the internet. We're having a big shift from local on-prem infrastructure to cloud infrastructure. So not only are we dealing with environments that these critical infrastructure, these cybersecurity architects, these cybersecurity professionals, they previously had, okay, here are my funnel points inside of my my network. Well, now I have this requirement that I'm sending this data out to some cloud for analysis. Okay, now I need to deal with all of my ingress and egress data going in and out of these particular cloud access points. And now, I might have 7, 10, 15 different cloud vendors or different vendors of my facility that now are moving to the cloud themselves, and I have to deal with that. So now
Right,
the entire landscape is shifting to, it's no longer linear. It's
right,
it's it's not just, this is step 1, 2, and 3 of protection. It's, how can I wrap my head around the entire mesh of all of these different areas of vulnerability in here too. So the demand for this role, these cybersecurity professionals in here, is it's getting larger as we scale. More and more facilities, more and more needs, more population, but at the same time the complexity is growing
right,
too. So it's
right.
it's 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 a bigger need with a more complex role. And
Right. There are so many more. I mean, because of the cloud, right, and because of all this interoperability, which again, it's all great from a
productivity
productivity and
standpoint, yeah.
efficiency perspective. Productivity and efficiency, right, perspective, it's great. But yeah, it's like now there's like it's like now there's these multiple dimensions of security that you got to be thinking about, right?
Right.
So like with the cloud, it's like does the cloud platform itself, what kind of security measures does it have? That's one element. But then there's like the vendors using the cloud. What security measures do they have, and how do those, is a vendor applying the same kind of strict security measures on data transferring from and to the cloud as it did on the on-prem stuff, and all those different elements that you got to be thinking about, right?
Right.
And as an organization, I mean, just to continue on that thought, right? As an organization, as a primary organization, the facility that in question, the water facility, the water treatment facility, or the substation. It's not just the cybersecurity of the primary employees of that organization. It's the cybersecurity of all the vendors interacting with that organization, right?
Right.
And how you address that. That's just huge. So
So these are the challenges, and
yeah,
we've established that it's stressful, that it's there's a lot of gravity to the position, and that it's
right,
complex. So
right,
why should we're trying to strive for more cybersecurity professionals.
right,
Why this industry, other than, there's a lot of open jobs because it's in demand.
right, right. So first of all, again, and you mentioned the word stressful, and every time you mention that, I kind of like gulp a little and think how to what the because the reality is there is a certain amount of stress there for sure. So I don't
Mhm.
want to downplay that, but I don't want it to come across like it's just this it's a it's a s- a pressure
Strangling
cooker job
hold,
all
yeah.
the time, right? The reality is there's a lot of jobs out there in the world that that carry a certain amount of stress, right? And cybersecurity is a part of security. I mean, security as a whole carries a certain amount of stress, right? If you're in
Mhm.
any kind of security field, let's think about, the classic, if you're in the military helping to secure the country, or if you're in a police force, or if you're in, there's a certain amount of stress that you have to deal with.
Let's call it responsibility.
It's
I think that's a
right.
more appropriate.
I think that's a better term, right?
Yeah.
If you're the type of person that can't deal with stress at all, yeah, it's probably not
Responsibility.
the right job for you. Probably not the right job for you, right? As just like it wouldn't be the right job to be in the military or in the police force, or in many other types of fields, even non-security fields.
Mhm.
So stress is an element of responsibility, right? There is a huge responsibility in this job. So we talk about there's responsibility. What were the other factors that you just mentioned?
Complexity.
Complexity, and there was a third one too, right? But
Um,
okay,
yeah.
responsibility,
Responsibility,
complexity,
complexity. Yeah.
and yeah, responsibility and complexity. So you're saying, look, this kind of field it's there's responsibility, there's complexity. Why would someone want to get into it? I think there's many people that they want. That's the way. First of all, the sense of playing some kind of fundamental role in society, some kind of
Mhm.
very fundamental, critical role. the sense of having to master something complex, the sense of, having to take on responsibility. I think a lot of people, they find that incredibly fulfilling, right?
Sure.
So I think, is this area for everybody? No, it's not for everybody. But I think there's a lot of people that would find it incredibly fulfilling. And I think there's a lot of people out there that probably have some interest in it, but don't necessarily know, like, and they're kind of looking for some guidance on, okay, so how do I get more involved in this industry? How do I get more involved in this discipline, right? How do I build up some expertise in this discipline? How do I learn more about what my options would be once I am involved in this discipline? And I think that, as we just covered on this webinar, there's plenty of opportunity. There's plenty of ways to get involved. There's plenty of ways to build up expertise. You mentioned OPSWAT Academy, so we'll
Great
just
place to
mention
start.
that again.
Yeah.
It's a good start. Yeah. But I think that it's look, I deal with, as we started this, I've been dealing with customers for the last 11 years in cybersecurity field. I deal with a lot of, it's been great for me because I deal with a lot of really, really sharp, interesting people. And I love that. Right. And I have a certain amount of worries about kind of where things are, where we're going, et cetera. I don't have a worry about the caliber of people that can help make us cyber secure. Like, the caliber of people I've been working with for the last 11 years, for the most part, are amazing. Right. And these are people that do understand that sense of responsibility. They do understand and want to take on, to master complexity, right? And or reduce complexity to things that they can execute on. They're people that are, like I mentioned before, you said the word curious, I said the word creative. These are these kind of people. And I think there's plenty of other people in the world that have those same characteristics and those same skills or potential skills, and will do very, very well in this area.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. Even just that first statement of the sense of fulfillment, it really is. Working in this industry at OPSWAT really has been eye opening to the customers that we work with, us as a company, feeling really good about what we do. And that's, I think, something that, everybody really, wants in a career. And anywhere that you work in cybersecurity, when you're doing something that's protecting something important, you feel that sense of fulfillment.
I think so.
So usually I save the last few minutes of the webinar for whatever product VP that I'm talking to talk a little bit about their solution. But Dan, this time you're the Senior VP of Customer Experience at OPSWAT. So I want to give you just a few minutes here to talk about our customer experience team, our support team, a little bit about what makes OPSWAT special and our focus on this. Talk a little bit about your umbrella here in the company for our audience.
Sure. So like you said, like I said, I deal with customer experience, and at OPSWAT, we like to say the customer experience is every customer interaction that's not sales, right? So we have an amazing sales team, and they'll help sell the product. But once the product is sold, that's when our customer experience team gets involved. And so customer experience is made up of 4 different pillars. Number one, let's just start with Academy, because Academy and our whole certification and training program, that's part of customer experience. That's Nate. That's your area. That's an area that OPSWAT is passionate about, right? So we really do. At OPSWAT, we see part of our mission is to help train and educate the current generation of cybersecurity experts and the next generation of cybersecurity experts, with a focus on critical infrastructure protection, of course, but just cybersecurity in general. And so, if I'm gonna be using this little session to do a little plug, I want to recommend to everybody. Well, if you're not already taking OPSWAT Academy courses, you should be. And the nice thing, we talk about like some of the challenges of how you get into this field, and then how you stay current on this field. And one of the things I like about OPSWAT Academy is that the courses are so modular, right? So you can choose to invest just a little bit of time or a lot of time at once, and still continue your kind of your training and your educational journey there. So that's really great. That's OPSWAT Academy. But customer experience is more than just Academy, of course. So the second thing is our support. So OPSWAT support, any customer that purchases our product purchases one of our support levels, from silver to gold, platinum. The higher the support level, the more interaction you can have with support. We're very, very proud of our support. We have a global support coverage, and one of the things that our support team is, we really drive home is also that sense of responsibility, right? So that sense of responsibility, that sense we're looking for people in support that are like really also passionate about critical infrastructure protection, and they understand that they're supporting customers that have that are responsible for a lot, and that
they have to match their needs.
Yeah. So that's our support team. Now, the third pillar is professional services. So we really recommend OPSWAT products are designed to be really, really easy to implement and install and use. But the reality is that they're often being put in environments that are not simple environments. They're complex environments, right? And OPSWAT products have dozens and in some cases hundreds of configuration options. And we really believe that to make the best use of our products, to really optimize your use cases on our products, use our professional services team. Let us help you implement the product in a way that will really optimize what you're looking for. That's professional services. We also have managed services. So for those customers that, they don't want to build up their own staff to manage the OPSWAT security products, right? It's like they have their own challenges, their own core competence they want to focus on. OPSWAT products aren't one of them. That's fine. Use our experts. Use our industry experts to manage your solutions. Right? We've had a lot of success with that model. And then finally, the last pillar is what we call customer success. So we have a team that's just proactively, a team that's responsible to just proactively make sure our customers are getting the most from their OPSWAT solutions, and that what we can provide these customers is evolving as the customer's needs evolve. And so that's customer experience. If anybody ever wants to know more about it, you can feel free to contact me, contact us. We can talk to you more about any of those pillars. And do you think that covers it there, Nate?
That covers it. I just wanted to add maybe one small thing too, that the OPSWAT Academy does kind of add in addition to that ongoing customer experience. We focus a lot on getting people interested in cybersecurity and getting involved with the concepts. But OPSWAT Academy does also have a lot of material for those customers as well that have purchased products. We do offer subscription packages, for enterprise customers that can go into the platform and learn how to do deep dive configurations or specific tasks for those specific products. So we mentioned about how OPSWAT Academy was previously built for that purpose. We still maintain that, even though we do a lot of outreach, a lot of trying to build the community and build the industry. If there are any customers on the in the audience that do have OPSWAT solutions and aren't aware, we do have professional courses for all of our products that can go through deep dives of many of our solutions. And these are great if you have new people on your team, you're doing change management, you're doing ongoing operation, and you want a quick way to get people caught up to speed on how to best manage and operate the solutions. That's also there, and that's all kind of under this whole umbrella of the customer experience servicing that we're
so that's really great. And I think you really articulated that really, really well. Just touch again on the subscription model, right? Because I know we have the concept of selling courses individually, but I think the subscription model is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our customers really appreciate it.
This is a new thing we're offering to our customers. Previously, the customers would need to purchase a specific course for a product that they have, but now we have a subscription model for our customers of OPSWAT products, which gives them access to. There's Basic, Plus, and Enterprise. The Basic allows them to access the courses in relation to the products that they purchased. The the Plus gives them that plus free access to all of the associate courses, which are those concept-based ones, and the Enterprise gives access to everything. And all three of these plans are unlimited users. So if there's a company that comes in and they purchase a few products of ours, and they want to get let's say the Enterprise plan, everybody in that organization, all of the admins that they bring on, 6 months down the line, they might have forgotten how to do some kind of initial deployment. They have that resource available to them throughout their entire subscription period, which is tied to their licensing of the product as well. So that's it's a relatively new. We came out with it this year. We're really excited to offer this to the customers and give more utility to the platform on this side of it. So for those of you in the audience that are still interested in learning about cybersecurity, we're not by any means stopping creating new associate content. We're still focusing on that. We want to bring the cybersecurity community together. We want to encourage more people to join the field. So we have kind of these two major projects of the platform where we're focusing on these cybersecurity concepts, and we're focusing on our products for the ongoing deployment. So really exciting, really great stuff that we're doing on the platform. We're going to be churning out more and more content, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the platform.
So basically, you go to OPSWAT Academy if you want to master critical infrastructure protection and cybersecurity, just best practices, right? You have a whole track around just that. And then you go to OPSWAT Academy if you want to master specific OPSWAT products, be it like to administer and configure and maintain OPSWAT products. Like it's a whole track.
And a lot of times there's some crossover too. So for example, if I am learning how to best configure my kiosk, OPSWAT product, a kiosk that scans USB drives.
You should know some of the underlying critical infrastructure protection concepts.
You should know why.
Considering as part of the
what makes a USB dangerous in the first place, and that's on those initial those associate courses as well. So you could even train a new operator or a new manager of your entire kiosk if you're an OPSWAT customer and you have 5, 10, 20 kiosks, and you have to hire on more team members to deal with managing and operating those kiosks and maintaining them. You can give them training if you have a subscription. You can give them training right off the bat for why those what kind of threats those USBs have, and then how to best configure those as well. So there is some crossover, but we do keep them separate so that if somebody isn't necessarily an OPSWAT customer, but they still want to learn these cybersecurity best practices, they still have access to those. So we do keep them as those kind of separate elements, even though that they can the non-directly product related courses actually can be very useful to particular individuals that do have our products and are using the product training. So there's a lot of content as to why we do what we do, and then the product training that shows how to best set it up and do it.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining this session. Thank you, Dan, very much for your time.
Thank you. I want to also thank everybody for listening in on this. Nate, thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.